Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you. Today, I am excited to present on a very important topic, the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. My name is Dr. A.M. Anandakumar, and I am an assistant professor in the PG and Research Department of Botany at NGM College, Palachi. In this session, we will explore the role and significance of this organization in conserving our natural resources and protecting biodiversity. We will also look at some key initiatives and how we all can contribute to this vital cause. Let's get started. Let's take a closer look at the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, or IUCN. This organization brings together government bodies and civil society groups, all focused on the vital fields of nature conservation and the sustainable use of our natural resources. One of their most well-known contributions is the Red List, which assesses and publishes the conservation status of species around the world. This helps us understand which species are at risk and prioritize actions accordingly. The core mission of the IUCN is to influence, encourage, and assist societies globally in conserving nature. They also emphasize the importance of using natural resources in a way that is fair and ecologically sustainable. So, overall, the IUCN plays a crucial role in guiding global efforts to protect biodiversity and ensure our natural resources are used responsibly for future generations. Let's take a moment to look at some key milestones in the history of the IUCN and its efforts in conservation. In 1948, the organization took part in establishing the World Wildlife Fund, which is now known as WWF. This was a significant step toward global conservation efforts. Then, in 1949, an important conference on the protection of nature was organized, bringing together experts and policymakers to discuss urgent conservation issues. Around that same time, the International Union for the Protection of Nature, or IUPN, was formed. Later, in 1956, the organization changed its name to the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, reflecting a broader focus on conserving both nature and natural resources. Moving forward to 1961, the IUPN, which by then was well established, began using the name World Conservation Union as its official name in 1990. However, shortly after, it reverted back to IUCN, maintaining its original identity. A key development came in 1964 when the first Red Data book was published, highlighting the conservation status of various species and raising awareness about endangered species globally. Finally, in 2012, IUCN published the list of the world's 100 most threatened species, a powerful tool to inform conservation priorities and actions. These milestones show how the organization has evolved over the decades, continually adapting and expanding its efforts to protect our planet's biodiversity. They also underscore the importance of collaboration, research, and awareness in driving meaningful conservation change. Let's start with the introduction. The IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, which you might also hear called the IUCN Red List or the Red Data List, is essentially a global catalog of species and their conservation status. It was established back in 1964 and has since become the most comprehensive inventory of its kind. It tracks the health of biological species worldwide, giving us a clear picture of which species are thriving and which are at risk. The IUCN itself is recognized as the leading authority on the conservation status of species. They don't work alone, though. Many countries and organizations produce their own regional red lists, which assess the risk of extinction specific to their areas. These regional assessments help us understand local conservation issues in greater detail. The Red List is based on precise, scientifically defined criteria. These criteria help evaluate the extinction risk for thousands of species and subspecies across the globe. This systematic approach allows us to categorize species into different risk levels, from least concern to critically endangered, making it a vital tool for guiding conservation efforts worldwide. By understanding these key points, we see how the Red List connects to the overall goal of protecting biodiversity and addressing global conservation challenges. The aim of IUCN is really centered around raising awareness about the urgency of conservation issues, not just within the scientific community, but also among the general public and policymakers. It's about making sure everyone understands how critical it is to act quickly to protect our planet's biodiversity. One of our key goals is to assist the international community in efforts to reduce species extinction. We want to provide the information and tools needed to help prevent the loss of countless species around the world. To do this effectively, we rely on scientifically based data. We assess and report on the status of species and subspecies globally, giving us a clear picture of what's happening in different regions and ecosystems. And ultimately, all this information is aimed at guiding actions, helping decision-makers, conservationists, and communities to implement strategies that preserve biological diversity for future generations. It's about turning knowledge into effective solutions. Let's take a closer look at some of our major collaborators. These include BirdLife International, which plays a crucial role in bird conservation efforts worldwide. Also, the Institute of Zoology, which is the research division of the Zoological Society of London, bringing scientific expertise and data to our work. We also work closely with the World Conservation Monitoring Center, an organization dedicated to tracking global biodiversity and environmental changes. In addition, many specialist groups within the IUCN Species Survival Commission contribute their specialized knowledge to our assessments. Together, these organizations and groups are responsible for nearly half of the species evaluations on the Red List. This collaboration is vital because it ensures that we have comprehensive and accurate data, helping us prioritize conservation actions. Overall, these partnerships strengthen our ability to assess and protect biodiversity on a global scale, which is at the core of our presentation today. Let's take a closer look at the rough data from the IUCN back in 2007. This slide gives us a snapshot of the situation at that time, highlighting some key figures and trends. What's important here is to understand the scale of biodiversity challenges we were facing then. The IUCN's data helps us grasp the extent of species that are threatened or endangered. It also provides a benchmark to measure progress or setbacks over the years. By examining this data, we can better appreciate the urgency of conservation efforts and how critical it is to act now to protect our natural heritage. This slide sets the stage for understanding the broader picture of biodiversity loss and the importance of ongoing conservation initiatives. Now, let's take a closer look at how species are categorized according to the IUCN Red List. They've established 9 main groups, each reflecting different levels of conservation concern. These categories are determined based on specific criteria, such as how quickly the population is declining, the total number of individuals, how much area they occupy geographically, and how fragmented their populations are. Starting with the most critical, we have the extinct category labeled X, which means there are no known individuals remaining anywhere. Then, there's extinct in the wild, or U, where species only survive in captivity or outside their natural range. Next, we have species classified as critically endangered, CR, which face an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild, so their situation is truly urgent. Just a step down is endangered, N, indicating a high risk of extinction but slightly less immediate than CR. Moving further, vulnerable, VU, species are still at high risk, but are somewhat more stable than the previous categories. We also have near-threatened, NT, which are species that could become endangered in the near future if conditions don't improve. Then there's least concern, LC, representing species that are currently at the lowest risk. These are often widespread and abundant, so they're generally considered safe for now. There are also categories for cases where we simply lack enough information. Data deficient, DD, means we don't have enough data to assess their risk properly. And finally, not evaluated, NE, indicates species that haven't yet been assessed against the criteria. Understanding these categories helps us grasp the varying levels of risk species face worldwide. It's a crucial part of conservation efforts, as it guides us on where to focus our attention and resources. A species is considered extinct when the last existing member of that species dies. Essentially, This marks the end of that species' existence on Earth. The moment of extinction is generally defined as the point when the very last individual of the species passes away. It's a specific, tangible moment that signifies the complete disappearance of that species from our planet. Currently, we have recorded a total of 868 species that have gone extinct worldwide. Understanding what extinction truly means helps us appreciate the importance of conservation efforts to prevent more species from reaching that irreversible point. When we talk about a species being extinct, it means that the last remaining member of that species has died. Extinction marks the complete end of a particular group of organisms, usually a species. The key point here is that extinction isn't just about a decline or a decrease in numbers. It's about the final individual passing away. We typically consider the moment of extinction to be when the very last individual of the species dies. This concept is important because it highlights how species disappear entirely from our planet, which can have significant impacts on ecosystems and biodiversity overall. Understanding extinction helps us recognize the importance of conservation efforts to prevent this irreversible loss. When we talk about species that are extinct in the wild, or we're referring to species that, according to the IUCN, no longer have any living individuals in their natural habitats. Instead, these species are only found in zoos or other controlled environments. Some of these species are considered functionally extinct, which means they no longer play a role in their natural ecosystems because there are so few or because they can't survive outside human care. The good news is that modern zoological institutions often work hard to maintain viable populations of these species. They do this through carefully planned breeding programs, with the hope that someday these animals might be reintroduced into the wild. So, even when a species is extinct in the wild, conservation efforts continue behind the scenes, aiming to preserve genetic diversity and possibly restore these species to their natural habitats in the future. This connects directly to our overall theme of understanding biodiversity and the importance of conservation efforts worldwide. A critically endangered species is one that the IUCN has classified as facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild. Currently, there are about 5,176 species around the world that fall into this category. Specifically, as of September 2016, the IUCN listed 455 critically endangered fish species. Now, what are the main criteria that determine this classification? First, there is a significant reduction in population, at least 80%, over a period of 10 years or 3 generations, whichever is longer. This indicates a rapid and severe decline. Second, if the population is estimated to have fewer than 250 mature individuals remaining, that also qualifies a species as critically endangered. These criteria highlight just how urgent the conservation efforts are for these species. Understanding these points is crucial because it helps us grasp the severity of the current biodiversity crisis and underscores the importance of targeted conservation strategies. When we talk about critically endangered species, we're referring to those that are facing an extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. The IUCN has a specific category for these species, called CR, which stands for critically endangered. This is actually the highest risk category they assign to wild species. Right now, there are over 2,100 animal species and more than 1,800 plant species that fall into this category. It's a significant number, highlighting how many species are truly at risk. One important point to remember is that the Red List doesn't declare a species extinct until extensive, targeted surveys have been carried out. That means, even if a species is possibly extinct, it might still be listed as critically endangered until we have more definitive information. So, understanding this category helps us grasp the urgency in conservation efforts and why it's crucial to act before species reach the point of no return. Let's talk about endangered species. An endangered species is one that has been categorized by the IUCN as being at high risk of extinction. Essentially, these are species whose survival is in serious jeopardy. Conservation biologists rely on the IUCN Red list to track and assess the risk levels of species worldwide. On this list, endangered is the second most severe status, just below critically endangered. Right now, there are about 3,079 animal species and 2,655 plant species that are considered endangered across the globe. That's a huge number, highlighting the urgent need for conservation efforts. Many nations have recognized this threat and have implemented laws to protect these vulnerable species. These laws might include banning hunting, restricting land development in critical habitats, or establishing protected areas like reserves. The goal is to create a safe environment where these species can recover and thrive. Understanding which species are endangered and why helps us see the importance of conservation. It's a vital part of maintaining biodiversity and ensuring our planet's health for future generations. A taxon is considered endangered when it's not critically endangered, but it's still facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future. Currently, there are about 7,705 species worldwide that fall into this endangered category. The key criteria used to determine this status include a significant reduction in population, at least 50%, over the last 10 years or 3 generations, whichever is longer. This reduction indicates serious threats to their survival. Another important factor is when the population is estimated to have fewer than 2,500 mature individuals. This small number makes the species extremely vulnerable to extinction because the genetic diversity is limited and their ability to recover is compromised. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these criteria helps us grasp the urgency of conservation efforts. Recognizing the risk factors allows us to prioritize actions to protect these vulnerable species before they become critically endangered or extinct. A taxon is considered vulnerable when it's not critically endangered or endangered, but still faces a high risk of extinction in the wild in the medium-term future. Currently, there are around 11,654 species worldwide that fall into this vulnerable category. The key criteria for classifying a species as vulnerable include several important factors. First, there must be an observed, estimated, inferred, or suspected reduction of at least 20% over a period of at least 10 years or 3 generations. This indicates a significant decline in their population over time. Another crucial criterion is that the population is estimated to have fewer than 10,000 mature individuals. This threshold helps us understand how small and potentially fragile these populations are. Overall, these criteria highlight the importance of monitoring population trends and understanding the threats these species face. Recognizing vulnerable species is a vital step in our broader effort to conserve biodiversity and prevent further declines. Let's take a look at some species that, while not currently endangered or vulnerable, could become rare in the future. These are typically species with small populations, which makes them more vulnerable to threats. Even though they are not classified as at risk now, their small numbers mean they could easily become endangered if conditions change. Often, these species are found in restricted or scattered habitats, which are spread over larger areas. This scattered distribution can make them more susceptible to local disturbances or habitat loss. Understanding these species is important because it helps us identify potential future risks and emphasizes the need for proactive conservation efforts. By paying attention to species that are not yet endangered but have small populations in limited areas, we can better protect biodiversity before it reaches a critical point. Now, let's take a look at the taxa that are included in the lower risk category. These can actually be divided into 3 distinct subcategories. First, we have the conservation-dependent, or LRCD. These are taxa that, if conditions don't improve, could qualify for threatened categories within the next 5 years. Essentially, they're on the brink and rely on ongoing conservation efforts to stay out of danger. Next, there's the near-threatened group, or LRNT. These taxa don't quite meet the criteria for conservation-dependent status, but they're close. They're the species that, with a bit of environmental change or increased threats, could soon qualify as vulnerable. Finally, we have the least concern category, or LRLC. These are species that currently don't qualify for conservation-dependent or near-threatened status. They are generally more stable and not immediately at risk. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding these subcategories helps us see the spectrum of risk within the lower risk group. It emphasizes the importance of targeted conservation efforts and monitoring, especially for those species that are close to becoming threatened. So, when we talk about data on abundance and distribution, it's important to recognize that sometimes the information available is actually lacking or incomplete. This means that even if a certain taxon is listed, we might not have enough data to determine how widespread it is or how many individuals there are. We call a taxon data deficient, or DD, when there's not enough information to confidently assess its risk of extinction. This could be because we don't know enough about where it lives or how many are out there. On the other hand, if a taxon hasn't yet been evaluated at all against specific criteria, we label it as not evaluated, or NE. Basically, it means it hasn't gone through the process of assessment yet. Understanding these distinctions is crucial because they highlight gaps in our knowledge. Without adequate data, it's hard to make informed decisions about conservation priorities, which ties back to our overall theme of assessing and protecting biodiversity effectively. Let's take a closer look at the IUCN Protected Area categories, or what we also call the IUCN Protected Area Management categories. These are a way to classify different protected areas around the world. They were developed by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, to help us organize and understand the various types of protected areas. The purpose behind this classification system is part of a broader strategy aimed at conserving the Earth's natural environment and biodiversity. By categorizing these areas, we can better plan, manage, and evaluate conservation efforts globally. The IUCN has created this system to define and record the different aims and concerns associated with each protected area. This helps us see not just what's protected, but also what each area's specific objectives are, whether it's preservation, sustainable use, or a combination of both. Overall, these categories are essential tools that support effective conservation strategies and ensure that we're protecting nature in ways that align with specific goals and local realities. A strict nature reserve, which falls under IUCN Category IA, is an area that's highly protected. The main goal here is to preserve the geological and geomorphological features of the region, as well as its biodiversity. These areas are set aside to minimize human impact as much as possible. You'll find that these reserves are often home to dense native ecosystems, which are incredibly sensitive. Human activity is restricted to only essential scientific studies, environmental monitoring, and educational activities. The idea is to allow nature to thrive with minimal interference, helping us understand and protect these vital environments. This concept ties into our overall theme of conservation and sustainable management, emphasizing the importance of safeguarding our most fragile ecosystems for future generations. A wilderness area, which falls under IUCN Category IB, is a type of protected area that's quite similar to a strict nature reserve. However, it's typically larger in size, and the level of protection is a bit less stringent. These areas are really important because they can serve as buffers against the impacts of climate change. They help protect threatened species and ecological communities by providing a relatively undisturbed environment. Overall, wilderness areas play a crucial role in conserving biodiversity and maintaining ecological resilience, which aligns with our broader goal of safeguarding natural heritage for future generations. National parks are carefully managed to strike a balance between conservation and supporting local economies. They promote educational and recreational tourism, which can bring in revenue and create jobs, all without compromising the core goal of protecting these vital ecosystems. These parks are designated areas where wildlife can thrive freely, with access to their natural habitats and resources. It's really about preserving the environment while allowing animals to live and move naturally. Importantly, no grazing of livestock is allowed inside national parks. This helps prevent habitat degradation and keeps the environment pristine for both wildlife and visitors. And we must remember, any commercial exploitation of natural resources within these parks is strictly prohibited. This strict regulation ensures that the parks remain protected, maintaining their ecological integrity for future generations. Overall, this approach aligns with the broader goal of sustainable conservation, protecting nature while supporting human interests in a balanced, respectful way. A natural monument is a natural and cultural feature that holds outstanding or unique value. This could be because of its rarity, its aesthetic qualities, or its cultural significance. These features are often considered special because they stand out in some way, either visually or historically. Areas are specifically set aside to protect these natural monuments, ensuring they're preserved for future generations. These protected areas can include landforms like mountains or cliffs, seamounts, submarine caverns, or geological features such as caves. They can even be living features like ancient groves of trees that have cultural or ecological importance. Usually, these protected zones are quite small, which helps focus conservation efforts. Despite their size, they often attract many visitors because of their uniqueness and beauty. This combination of rarity, cultural importance, and visitor appeal highlights why protecting natural monuments is so vital within our broader efforts to conserve natural and cultural heritage. Habitat or species management areas, which fall under IUCN Category IV, are quite similar to natural monuments or features. However, the key difference is that these areas are focused on more specific conservation goals. Instead of just protecting a natural feature for its aesthetic or geological importance, these areas target particular species or habitats that need ongoing protection. Think of it as a targeted effort, whether it's an identifiable species that's threatened or a specific habitat that requires continuous care. The goal is to manage these areas in a way that ensures the long-term survival and health of those species or habitats. To do this effectively, these protected areas are carefully controlled. This control helps in maintaining, conserving, and even restoring the species or habitats that are the focus. Sometimes, traditional methods are used in these efforts, highlighting the importance of local knowledge and practices. Another important aspect is public education. Encouraging awareness and understanding of these areas is crucial, as it supports the overall management objectives. When communities know why these areas matter, they're more likely to support and participate in their conservation. Overall, habitat or species management areas are a vital part of our broader conservation strategy. They allow us to focus efforts precisely where they're needed most, ensuring that specific species and habitats continue to thrive for generations to come. Let's talk about IUCN Category V, which is the Protected Landscape and Seascape designation. Essentially, this category covers entire areas of land or ocean, with a management plan that's explicitly designed to conserve nature. But what makes it interesting is that it also allows for a range of for-profit activities. So, it's not about strict preservation alone. It's about balancing conservation with sustainable use. What's particularly important here is that these protected landscapes and seascapes promote a higher level of interaction with local communities. These communities aren't just bystanders. They can actively contribute to managing these areas. They also have the opportunity to engage with the natural and cultural heritage that these landscapes embody, and do so through sustainable practices. This approach fits well into our overall theme of sustainable conservation. It's about finding that sweet spot where nature, culture, and human activity coexist harmoniously, ensuring the long-term health of these areas while supporting local livelihoods. Though human involvement plays a significant role in managing these protected areas, it's important to note that the goal is not to develop them for large-scale industrial production. Instead, these areas are primarily preserved for their ecological and cultural value. The IUCN recommends that a certain portion of the land should remain in its natural state, which helps maintain biodiversity and ecological integrity. Deciding how much land to keep untouched is a decision that typically happens at the national level, and it often varies depending on the specific protected area. This approach ensures that conservation efforts are tailored to the unique needs and circumstances of each location. Overall, this emphasizes a balanced approach. Human management is involved, but the primary focus is on conservation and sustainability, aligning with the broader theme of protecting natural environments for future generations. Currently, we're looking at the present status of our global efforts. We have 217 states and government agencies actively involved, which shows a broad governmental commitment. Alongside that, there are 1,066 NGOs contributing to our initiatives, highlighting the importance of non-governmental organizations in our work. We also collaborate with 16,151 experts across various fields, bringing a wealth of knowledge and specialized skills to the table. These efforts are organized into 6 different commissions, each focusing on specific areas of our mission. Our work spans across 161 countries, demonstrating the truly global reach of our initiatives. And all of this is coordinated from our headquarters in Gland, Switzerland, which serves as the hub for our global operations. This overview underscores how extensive and coordinated our current efforts are, reflecting a collective commitment to achieving our overarching goals. Let's take a closer look at how IUCN is managed and governed. The organization is managed by the IUCN Global Secretariat, which is led by the Director General. Currently, that's Injur Anderson. She oversees the day-to-day operations and ensures that the organization stays aligned with its mission. Now, on a larger scale, the IUCN's member organization is the General Assembly of the Union's members, which convenes during the World Conservation Congress. This is a key event where members come together to make important decisions, set priorities, and shape the future direction of IUCN. The principal governing body of IUCN is the IUCN Council. Think of it as the executive arm that guides the organization's strategic direction. It is led by the president, who provides leadership and oversight. For example, from 2012 to 2016, the president of the council was Zhang Xinsheng from China. His leadership during that period helped steer some of the organization's major initiatives. All of these components, the Secretariat, the General Assembly, and the Council, work together to ensure that IUCN can effectively carry out its mission of conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. This governance structure is essential for maintaining the organization's effectiveness and global impact. Let's take a moment to look back at the IUCN Council's priorities from 2012 to 2016. During this period, the Council focused on strategic initiatives aimed at strengthening conservation efforts worldwide, ensuring that policies and programs aligned with the most urgent environmental challenges. Looking ahead, the 2016 IUCN Congress, which is currently underway in Hawaii from September 1 to September 10, is a pivotal event. This Congress brings together a diverse community of conservation leaders, experts, and stakeholders from around the globe. It's an excellent opportunity to discuss, debate, and shape the future direction of conservation efforts. This connection between the Council's previous priorities and the Congress highlights how ongoing collaboration and strategic planning are essential for achieving meaningful impact. It's about building on past successes and setting new, ambitious goals for the next phase of conservation. On this slide, we're looking at 2 important commissions: the Commission on Environmental, Economic, and Social Policy, and the Commission on Ecosystem Management. These are key groups within our overall framework that focus on different but interconnected aspects of sustainability. The Commission on Environmental, Economic, and Social Policy works to develop strategies that balance environmental health with economic growth and social well-being. It's about finding solutions that are sustainable in the long term and benefit all parts of society. On the other hand, the Commission on Ecosystem Management concentrates specifically on maintaining and restoring ecosystems. Their focus is on protecting biodiversity, managing natural resources wisely, and ensuring that ecosystems continue to function effectively. Both commissions are crucial because they highlight the interconnectedness of environmental health, economic stability, and social equity, something that's at the heart of our overall theme. By working together, they help us build a more sustainable and resilient future for everyone. On this slide, we're looking at the various themes that IUCN works across to address conservation, environmental, and ecological issues. These themes are interconnected and cover a wide range of critical areas. For example, buousness and biodiversity highlight how economic activities impact natural ecosystems and how sustainable practices can help protect biodiversity. Climate change is another key theme, emphasizing the urgent need to mitigate and adapt to global warming's effects. Economics plays a vital role in shaping policies and incentives for conservation efforts. Ecosystem management focuses on maintaining the health and resilience of ecosystems, ensuring they continue to provide vital services. Forests are a crucial theme, given their role in carbon sequestration and habitat provision. Gender considerations are integrated to promote equitable participation in conservation initiatives. Global policy underscores the importance of international cooperation and agreements. Marine and polar protected areas highlight areas that are vital for marine biodiversity and polar ecosystems, which are particularly vulnerable to climate impacts. Science and knowledge are fundamental to inform effective strategies, guiding evidence-based decision-making. Social policy addresses the human dimensions of conservation, including community involvement and social equity. Environmental law provides the legal frameworks necessary to enforce conservation measures and protect species. Water resources are integral to both ecosystems and human well-being, making their management essential. Finally, World Heritage recognizes sites of outstanding natural and cultural value, underscoring the importance of preserving our shared global heritage. Altogether, these themes demonstrate the comprehensive approach IUCN takes in working across different sectors and issues to ensure a healthier, more sustainable planet. Now, let's take a look at the regions of action. This map highlights the diverse areas where we are actively working and making an impact. We have our presence in Asia, which is a key focus for many of our initiatives. Then, moving over to Central and West Africa, where our efforts are helping to drive progress and development. In Eastern and Southern Africa, we're supporting projects that address unique regional challenges. Eastern Europe and Central Asia are also crucial areas, with ongoing collaborations to foster stability and growth. Europe remains a significant region for us, reflecting our long-standing commitments. The Mediterranean region is another vital area, with efforts tailored to address specific regional needs. In the Americas, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean are top priorities, given the shared economic and social ties. Oceania is also included, representing our engagement in this diverse and dynamic part of the world. South America is another key region, with projects aimed at sustainable development and economic resilience. Our Washington, D.C. office plays a central role in coordinating these efforts, providing strategic oversight and facilitating international collaboration. Lastly, West Asia, often referred to as the Middle East, is a region where our action is focused on fostering stability and supporting development initiatives. All these regions collectively illustrate our global reach and the comprehensive scope of our work. It's through these targeted actions that we are able to support local communities and contribute to broader international goals. India is truly a megadiverse country, which means it hosts a remarkable variety of life. In fact, India accounts for about 7 to 8% of all the recorded species on the planet. That's over 45,000 different plant species and approximately 91,000 animal species. This incredible diversity highlights the importance of protecting our natural heritage. Additionally, India is home to 4 of the 34 globally recognized biodiversity hotspots. These are the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, the Northeast region, and the Nicobar Islands. These hotspots are areas with exceptionally high biodiversity that are also under significant threat, making them critical focus areas for conservation efforts. India's commitment to biodiversity conservation is reflected in its membership with IUCN. India became a state member of IUCN back in 1969 through the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, or MOEFCC. This affiliation helps India participate actively in global conservation initiatives. Furthermore, the IUCN India Country Office was established in 2007 in New Delhi. This office plays a vital role in implementing conservation projects, policy advocacy, and coordinating efforts across the country. All of these points emphasize how India's rich biodiversity is recognized and supported at both national and international levels, aligning with the overall theme of conserving our planet's natural wealth. The IUCN Red List, which was first published back in 1964, is a critical tool for understanding the conservation status of species worldwide. It is managed by the IUCN Global Species Program, working closely with the IUCN Species Survival Commission, or SSC. Together, they assess and monitor the risk levels faced by a wide variety of life forms. This list provides valuable information not just about species, but also about subspecies, varieties, and even some specific populations within species. It helps us get a comprehensive picture of biodiversity on a global scale. One of the most important aspects of the IUCN Red List is that it highlights which taxa, meaning groups of organisms, are threatened with extinction. By doing this, it aims to raise awareness and promote targeted conservation efforts. Overall, the Red List is a vital resource that informs conservation priorities and strategies, helping us focus our efforts where they are most needed to protect our planet's incredible diversity of life. Let's take a closer look at the Red List categories and criteria. These are essential for understanding how species are evaluated and prioritized for conservation. Each category helps us classify species based on their risk of extinction, from least concern to extinct. The criteria, on the other hand, provide specific standards for assigning species to these categories. They include factors like population size, rate of decline, geographic range, and degree of population and habitat fragmentation. Understanding these categories and criteria is crucial because they form the backbone of conservation assessments worldwide. They help us identify which species are most at risk and require immediate action. This systematic approach ensures that our conservation efforts are targeted and effective, aligning with the overall goal of preserving biodiversity for future generations. When we talk about extinction, we refer to a situation where there is no reasonable doubt that the last individual of a species has died. In other words, the species no longer exists in the wild or in captivity. Now, there's also a category called extinct in the wild, which is a bit different. This status applies when a species is known to survive only in cultivation, in captivity, or as a naturalized population outside its original range. Essentially, these species are no longer found in their natural habitats, but they still exist in controlled environments or outside their historic range. Both of these categories are part of the Red List criteria, which helps us understand and evaluate the conservation status of species worldwide. Recognizing these distinctions is crucial for our overall effort to protect biodiversity and prioritize conservation actions. Let's take a closer look at some of the plant species highlighted on this slide. First, we have Cynomtra bedomi, which is unfortunately listed as extinct. This means that there are no known living individuals left in the wild, emphasizing the critical state of some of these species. Next, Ilex gardneriana is also classified as extinct, a reminder of how fragile plant diversity can be if not properly protected. Moving on, Madhuca insignis is listed as extinct in the wild. This is a significant distinction because it indicates that while the species might still exist in cultivation or captivity, it no longer survives in its natural habitat. This situation underscores the urgent need for habitat conservation efforts. Then we see Corypha thaliera, Euphorbia mayornathanae, which are species that are critically endangered or perhaps even facing similar threats. These examples highlight the importance of understanding the conservation status of different species and the necessity of targeted actions to prevent further losses. Overall, these cases reinforce the overall theme of our presentation: the urgent need to protect and conserve plant biodiversity before more species face the risk of extinction. By raising awareness and taking proactive steps, we can help preserve these vital components of our ecosystems. This slide doesn't contain enough information. That's why we're moving to the next slide. This slide doesn't contain enough information. That's why we're moving to the next slide. Now, let's turn our attention to some of the species that are most at risk today. On this slide, we see examples of those classified as endangered and critically endangered. For instance, Hemibagrus punctatus, a freshwater catfish, is facing significant threats to its survival. Similarly, Hopia erosa, a valuable timber tree, is critically endangered due to deforestation and illegal logging. Moving on, Memicillin cispirens, a lesser-known plant species, also falls into this category, highlighting the importance of conserving plant biodiversity. We also have Dawkinsia aeruleus, a small freshwater fish, which is increasingly vulnerable because of habitat destruction. Decalpes hamiltonii, a medicinal plant, is critically endangered partly because of overharvesting. Then there's Rhayorchestes travancoricus, a unique frog species, which is critically endangered due to habitat loss and pollution. These examples underscore the urgent need for targeted conservation efforts. They remind us that biodiversity loss is not just about individual species, but about the health of entire ecosystems. Protecting these species is crucial for maintaining ecological balance, and it aligns perfectly with our overall message about the importance of preserving our natural world. Now, let's take a closer look at some of the species that are considered vulnerable. First up is Aeonyx cinereus, also known as the Asian small-clawed otter. It's a fascinating species, but unfortunately, its population is declining due to habitat loss and pollution. Moving on, we have Magnolia nilagirica, a plant species native to the Western Ghats. This magnolia is at risk because of deforestation and overharvesting. Next, Dawkinsia assimilis, a small freshwater fish, faces threats from water pollution and habitat fragmentation, which threaten its survival. Then there's Myristica dactyloides, a nutmeg species, which is vulnerable mainly because of illegal harvesting and habitat destruction. Finally, Phyllanthus indophisheri, a lesser-known plant, is also listed as vulnerable, primarily due to habitat loss and agricultural expansion. These examples really highlight how diverse groups, mammals, plants, fish, are all facing similar threats, emphasizing the importance of targeted conservation efforts across different ecosystems. Recognizing these vulnerable species is a crucial part of our overall goal to protect biodiversity and maintain ecological balance. Now, let's look at some of the key categories used in the Red List. First, near threatened, or NT. A taxon is considered NT when it has been evaluated against specific criteria, but does not currently qualify for the more serious categories like critically endangered, or vulnerable. However, it's close to qualifying for these categories, or may be likely to qualify in the near future. This means that, while they might not be in immediate danger now, they could become threatened soon if conditions worsen. Next, we have the least concern category, or LC. A taxon is classified as LC when it has been evaluated and does not meet the criteria for any of the threatened categories: critically endangered, vulnerable, or near threatened. These are typically widespread and abundant species, and their populations are generally stable. It's important to recognize that just because a species is LC now doesn't mean it's free from threats forever, but currently, it's considered at low risk. Moving on to data deficient, or DD. This category is used when there isn't enough information available to assess a species' risk of extinction. This could be because we lack data about its distribution or population size, or both. In such cases, It's not possible to determine whether it's at risk or not, which highlights the need for further research. Lastly, we have not evaluated or any. This simply means that a species hasn't yet been assessed against the criteria. It's a reminder that our knowledge is still incomplete, and some species haven't been officially classified within these categories yet. All of these categories help us understand the conservation status of different species and prioritize our efforts accordingly. They're part of the larger framework of the Red List criteria, which we'll explore further in the next part of the presentation. This slide doesn't contain enough information. That's why we're moving to the next slide.